Hey guys, Moose here. Welcome back to another episode of Stonehearth in our Ascendancy playthrough. It is March 6th, and there's actually a couple good ones today, but there's one that really stands out. The first possible one was the Bouncer, which was a Square Enix game that was kind of like a fighter, kind of along the lines of Tekken, I guess, but a little bit different. It's hard to remember or explain what it was like. It's been a long time since I've seen or played it, but it was, decent game. A friend had it when I was in high school, so that's my exposure to it. And it seems to just kind of like periodically every few years crop back up, and I hear or see something about it, and it's surprising. I think it was a little bit of a cult hit, maybe? Not totally sure. I should read up about it. But the one that I did read up about, which is definitely the more interesting one, is on this date in 2005, 12 years ago today. 60 Minutes, which, if you don't know, is an American kind of like news program that does a deep dive into some particular topic. Their topic on this date, 12 years ago today, was video game controversy, specifically violence in video games. And if you remember back to then, this was back when, I can't remember what year Columbine was, but all the, people were starting to get afraid. We were getting more news coverage of shootings and violence, and oh look, these kids are doing these violent things, and GTA was a pretty big game back then, so it was only natural to say, well, these newfangled video games, they must be the reason why kids are doing this. They're killing cops in GTA, so they must be killing cops in real life too. That's how that works. And the studies hadn't been done at that point. And I think, if you're watching this, you're probably a gamer, and you know that that's horseshit. Playing a violent game doesn't make you a killer. That's not how it works. But you have to understand, back then it was new, and this doesn't make it right, but the studies hadn't been done, and they're, you know how studies work. Someone who disagrees with you funds a study, and magically it comes back that they were right, even though the methodology is bullshit. They're fudging the numbers. There's all kinds of different ways that they can fake a conclusion, and they do all the time. You see it in politics. They say studies show, yeah, bullshit. If you really want to take meaningful information from something like that, you really need to look into exactly how and why they're drawing the conclusions that they're drawing. It's not as simple as just saying, well, it's cut and dry, there it is. No, if they design the experiment poorly, or they design it in such a way that they're biased towards a particular result, there's a number of things that lead into this, and people don't really do a very good job of catching it. Peer review is tough because, a lot of these don't go through peer review, I think, but even if they did, there's a lot of shit out there. It's hard to review every little thing that happens or goes out. And the big name, like cure for cancer kind of stuff, is going to get reviewed, fine, and that's going to be validated, and it's serious, but violence in video games doesn't really rank very high in the list of things that are important in the world, so it's easy for someone just to say something like that and be taken seriously, because there's no one there who knows any better to stand against them, who cares enough to actually say something. So it creates a lot of issues, but you may remember a guy by the name of Jack Thompson from back around this time. And that's kind of the more interesting, well, not more interesting. If you like watching train wrecks, that's a fun thing to read about. I think it's fair to say that he's a particularly litigious person in general. And the Wikipedia article for him is hilarious. Like, just take a look and read it. I'll give you some quick highlights real quick. And by the way, the reason he's he's well known for a number of reasons. He does all kinds of weird stuff, but in particular, within this context, he was one of the main lawyer who was getting in on like, oh, GTA caused Columbine, that kind of thing. Not specifically that necessarily, but those kinds of lawsuits. And that did not endear him to the gaming population as a whole, myself included. There's a lot of people who really did not appreciate his attitude or his in our opinion, of course, lack of knowledge about reality with the way, you know, video games interact with the world at large and how people play them and what the deal is. And part of the issue was that, like I said, studies, it's tough to contradict if there's no one really invested in saying, hey, this is bullshit. And back then, you could have a guy like Jack Thompson who, if you read his Wikipedia article, you would realize does not ever deserve to have any attention on the news unless he's being institutionalized or something. And, like, he's going on the news and saying, yeah, I think GTA caused this. I'm suing Rockstar. Oh, we get a new person. That's rare. Must be making good progress on our building here. But yeah, like, it was a new thing, and with new things, you get this kind of, like, the first person in gets in, and if they're not particularly bright, then you're going to get some craziness going on, and that's sort of, in a way, to a degree, what happened there. Now there's people who know better, and you can get in on that because you know what you're talking about, rather than because you are one of the only people active in that space who's willing to go on TV. So, but really read his Wikipedia article, it's hilarious. He got disbarred, I think, in 2008, and which, if you don't know, that means he is no longer allowed to practice law. And his response was in 2009, he said, like, oh, well, that was illegal. That's not real. So I'm going to keep practicing law. I dare the state of Florida to do a court order against him to stop him from practicing law. Which is, I don't know. There's actually a really good, I'm pissed, I'm going to forget his name now. Oh, what was his name? It's really good. There's a guy on YouTube I've been watching lately who's been fantastic, and he covers video game stuff, copyright law, stuff like that, YouTube stuff. And it's really, really good. It's really entertaining. He's fantastic. And the impression that I get from watching his stuff, Leonard French, look him up on YouTube if you have time. His videos are fantastic. I absolutely love watching his stuff. The way he talks, it makes it seem like, yeah, court and law is about rules and details, but if you don't treat the institution with respect, and you don't treat the other participants with respect, and just kind of, even if you can disagree and say crazy shit all you want, as long as you do it in a respectful way that's not like, hey, fuck you, this is my argument. You just say, well, I disagree with you, here's my argument. You're respectful the whole way, and you can kind of get away with crazy stuff and just have your little corner of the world, and as long as you're not being a total piece of shit about things, you're gonna be fine. And it seems like, as an outsider, if Jack Thompson is gonna act the way he has in such a public manner that he has, I can't imagine that even if there wasn't a court order against him or anything like that, even if the law was all made up and just bullshit and he could just do whatever he wanted and start practicing law, the second he gets in front of a judge, he's gonna get reamed. Like, there's no... That's gotta be, like, catastrophic consequences if that happens. And I almost want to... I mean, this was in 2009, so it's like almost a decade ago now, but that was the most recent piece of information about him. I want to see that happen. I want to see him somehow manage to get through the system and represent someone and get in front of a judge, or file a lawsuit and get in front of it, or anything where he's supposed to be acting like a lawyer, and just watch the judge eviscerate him. That would be hilarious. And there's stuff that happens like that. Actually, this was a video that Leonard French did, and I would check it out. I would recommend checking it out. Basically, from what I remember, some lawyer was not shit-faced, but he's pretty wasted. And he was late, drunk, and had been doing something with a prostitute. And he was trying to, like, all on top of that, he was dishonest with the judge about why he was late, I think. And it's just like, you're basically watching this guy end his life, because that's a profession where you need to take shit seriously. You can't be like that. It's too catastrophic to... Ooh, that's actually an enemy. I thought that was one of my guys. I was wondering what he was doing out there. You can't mess around with that. It's too serious of a thing. There's too many serious people involved that can ruin you. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. When I say that, I make it sound like, oh, well, if you don't do what I want, I'm gonna fuck... No, it's not like that. It's just like, it's a serious thing. There's serious stuff that goes on there. You can't... It's like, in the same way that if you work as a mortician, you can't, like, dress up someone's dead husband as a clown before, you know, the funeral. And then, surprise, your corpse husband is in a clown costume instead of a suit, tuxedo, like you asked. You can't do that. That's how you get sued, fired, whatever. Your career ends very quickly. Other jobs you can get away with a little bullshit. That's not one of them. So it's just kind of funny to see that kind of a situation. And to a degree, that's kind of how Jack Thompson's Wikipedia entry, like, from start to finish reads, and it's fun to watch, I guess. But anyway, that's not even the primary point. The primary point's the 60 Minutes thing and linking video games to like, actual violence. And obviously, you know, we know better these days because those studies have been done, and we've got, you know, hey, video games are not linked to violence like that. That's actually bullshit. But even in the news article that went along with the 60 Minutes episode, they had a guy on there who had a study that said they were linked. And that's pretty clearly bullshit now, so you have to wonder, like, does this guy see any repercussions for having bad data? Is he less well known? Or, I mean, is he less trustworthy as a data source now? Not really, we don't know. No one knows who the hell this idiot is. No one's gonna care. So it's just difficult, and this is relevant these days, of course, with all the fake news and stuff permeating the world. If you look on Facebook, pretty good odds you're going to find a whole bunch of bullshit news stories shared by your friends who think they're real. On either side of the aisle, I'm not trying to use that to say, oh, Trump got elected because of fake news or anything. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying fake news is actually a serious issue, and there's consequences for shit like this. And it's, you know, in the case of what we're talking about, the 60 Minutes episode, it's, you know, a lot of talk about, hey, we should censor video games because they're so violent, it's turning our kids into murderers, and that's obviously complete horseshit. But, you know, this stuff goes on TV, someone sees it, and parents start seeing it and thinking, oh, I can't let my kids play video games because blah blah blah, they're going to become killers. And, you know, you have situations like me where I didn't get to play games. It was, you know, this, from my perspective, massive hypocrisy from my parents. Is like, oh, you're not allowed to play games. You can have 1 hour of screen time per day. And then I'd watch them come home from work and spend the entire fucking day watching TV. Like, literally any time that they were not working or eating, they'd be watching TV. Or sleeping, of course. And it's just like, well, what's the fucking difference? Like, what are you doing? How is this fair for me? And I understand, like, oh, well, they're the adult, they pay all the bills, fine, they make the rules. But you can't expect someone to accept uneven application of rules like that and say, it's like if there was a king that said, no one's allowed to have delicious food, you can only eat potatoes, but I'm going to eat delicious food every day. And I'm going to do it somewhere where you can see me and watch while I eat this food. Is this guy going to die? Really hope not, but it sure seems like he's gonna. You know, anyway, my point is people would rebel, probably kill that guy. That's like, you wind up with your head on a spike or under a guillotine. So for your parent, I mean, obviously I'm not going to kill my parents, but you know, it kind of saps their credibility a bit to have that kind of a hypocritical application of the rules and the expectation of what good conduct is, I guess. Alright, well, our herbalist is fucked. That's a shame. Who are we gonna promote? Let's pick someone out. No. No. Maybe. Better. No. Yeah, you're the one. It's no fucking question. That guy was... Okay, we just have to wait for the other guy to die. So who's this? Chopper Freywind. Okay, well we're gonna get a new person tomorrow because the herbalist is gonna be dead. Let's find Chopper. Hurry up and die. Since you're not getting picked up. It's not your fault, buddy. I know you did everything you could. Other than run away like I told you to. You idiot. There he goes. Congratulations. You are now our new herbalist. That was a very loud car. Oh well. But yeah, it's good to see that we've come far and video games aren't treated as they were. Gaming is a lot more popular and, you know, everyone kind of gets it for the most part. I mean, not the old people. Old people still have a problem. Like, really old people. But overall, we're in good shape, you know? Gaming is generally accepted, and it's good to see that in the 12 years that have passed since that 60 Minutes episode ran, that we've been able to get to a point where you can have a video game commercial on TV, like not just Cartoon Network at 1 in the morning. You can have a legit commercial on TV in primetime for whatever it is. You know, we are at the point where it's mostly Battlefield or Call of Duty, but, you know, we're getting there. It's progress. Bit by bit. Just give it time, we'll get there. So, it's good to see, but it is sad to look back and see where we've been, because there's some fucked up shit going on back then. Blaming video games for shit like Columbine and not addressing the issue of, like, why does a high schooler have access to firearms? Why does a high schooler who clearly is not stable not get treatment? You know, why do it's a cultural thing, I think. And that's my opinion. We have a cultural issue that we need to fix. I don't think that getting rid of guns completely solves the problem. I don't think that is really our identity as a country, whether any individual person likes that or not. It's just not who we are. I think really the solution is cultural. Canada's got plenty of guns too. Just saying, they don't kill each other all the time. So, just gotta, you know, have a more calm, less fuck you, I'm gonna get mine kind of culture. We just have a little bit more caring and a little bit more, you know, wishing well for your neighbors instead of coveting everything they've got. It's kind of where we need to be culturally. That's the change I think we need, rather than anything else. And that's not legislation or anything like that. It's just, you gotta... It's how you raise people, and that makes it incredibly hard to change, because if someone wants to raise their kid a particular way, tough shit, you're not going to be able to do anything about it. That's even harder than taking away guns. So, I don't know. I don't know if there's a solution to it. So, but at least it's good that we're not blaming video games for it anymore, right? Like, that's something that's at least a positive. Anyway, sorry, this is a pretty dark episode talking about some serious issues, but it's a really interesting subject. I encourage you to go read about it. There's a lot of really good content about it on Wikipedia. Like I said, the Jack Thompson article is good. You can read the 60 Minutes article. Just Google 60 Minutes video game controversy. You'll find the article pretty quickly there. there's some good stuff to read about and kind of see where things were and how video games were treated in the public view back then. Because we've really come a long way. And it's good that we have, but we still have a long way to go still. Anyway, that is going to do it for today's episode, so thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you will join us for the next one as well. Take care.